I thought I had found the perfect daycare, safe, close to work, and recommended by other parents. My son, 3 years old and normally cheerful, didn't complain much when we dropped him off. But something felt off. The kind of thing you can't explain until it hits you in the gut. That day, I arrived a little earlier than usual. What I saw through the window stopped me cold. My son was alone in a corner, tears streaming down his face, clutching a stuffed animal that wasn't even his. The room was half empty, eerily quiet. No one was with him. When I opened the door, the director, always so polished and performative, spun around so fast, you'd think she heard a gunshot. Her expression changed instantly, from surprise to something else. Something I couldn't name yet, but I would, and what I uncovered after that moment would change everything I thought I knew about who I could trust with my child. I wasn't supposed to be there that early. My meeting got cancelled, and instead of heading back home or grabbing a coffee, I thought, why not surprise my son? I pictured him laughing, maybe coloring at one of the little tables, his face lighting up when he saw me. I was smiling as I parked the car, but as I stepped out and walked toward the daycare's glass door, that smile disappeared. Through the window, I saw him. My son. Curled up in a corner, knees pulled to his chest, clutching a faded, unfamiliar stuffed animal. His tiny shoulders were shaking. He wasn't just crying, he was sobbing. Alone. No teacher. No aide. No one even looking in his direction. I froze. My instinct told me not to rush in yet. I wanted to see what would happen if I just waited a few seconds. 30 seconds passed. Then a full minute. Still, no one came. I opened the door, the bell chimed, and suddenly, everything moved. The daycare director, Miss Karen, was halfway across the room, but the moment she heard the sound, her entire demeanor shifted. She turned around like she was on stage and just heard her cue. Smile wide, arms already starting to open. Oh. You're here early, she chirped, too brightly. I didn't smile back. I went straight to my son, his face crumpled when he saw me. Mommy, he whispered, voice hoarse, I didn't want to stay. He clung to my neck like he was drowning. Miss Karen was still talking. We were just about to start our story time. He must have wandered off for a second. No one was with him, I said, still kneeling. She paused. Just for a split second. We keep a close eye, but sometimes little ones need a minute to themselves. It's part of learning independence. That stuffed animal, it wasn't his. I picked it up, holding it between 2 fingers. Is this yours? I asked him. He shook his head. It was on the floor. I got scared. That word. Scared. It didn't belong in a place like this. I stood up. My son still wrapped around me. I think we'll go home early today. Miss Karen's smile stiffened. Of course. But if there's anything wrong, we'd really like to talk it through. I'll call you, I said, and walked out. Once in the car, he finally started to calm down. But then he said something that made me grip the steering wheel tighter. She told me not to cry so loud. That I'd scare the others. I looked at him in the rearview mirror. His little face still blotchy, but serious. Who said that? He didn't answer. Just looked away. I called the daycare that afternoon, but Miss Karen didn't answer. A younger assistant did. I asked for a schedule of the day, who was on duty at what time, where the kids were meant to be. She hesitated. Said she'd have someone email me. The email never came. The next day, I kept him home. I told them he was sick. They didn't ask questions, but that night, while getting ready for bed, he looked up at me and asked, Mommy, is she gonna be mad that I told you? I tried to keep my voice steady. Who? He hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper, the other lady. The one with the keys. I blinked. What lady? He pointed vaguely, like trying to draw the shape of a hallway in the air. She has the big keychain. Not the smiling one. The one who watches the cameras. I stared at him, heart starting to thump louder in my ears, because I had never seen another woman with keys, only Miss Karen, and I had no idea there were cameras. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying his voice in my head. The one with the keys. The one who watches the cameras. It hadn't even occurred to me that there might be security cameras in the daycare. I'd never seen one. Never signed a form about surveillance. And certainly never saw anyone else carrying keys besides Miss Karen. But my son, 3 years old, not even fully potty trained, spoke about it like it was obvious. Like I was the one who had missed something. The next morning, I called the daycare again. This time, someone else picked up. A young voice, nervous, trying too hard to sound cheerful. Little Acorns Daycare, this is Maya speaking. Maya. Hi, I said, steady but firm. This is Liam's mom. I wanted to ask about the woman who supervises the cameras. Could I speak with her? There was a pause. Not long. Just enough for my heart to start pounding. I'm sorry. I'm not sure who you mean. You don't have security cameras? Well, for the outside, yes. In the lobby. For safety reasons. What about inside? The classrooms? Another pause. I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about that. Then put someone on the phone who is. She went silent. Then came the canned line. I'll have Miss Karen give you a call back. I hung up. I knew she wouldn't call that day. I kept Liam close. Every time I looked at him, I saw that little face curled in the corner of the daycare. Something had happened. And whether or not anyone wanted to say it out loud, he knew it. He felt it that evening. I decided to go back. Not to drop him off. To observe. I left him with my sister and drove to the daycare 15 minutes before closing. I waited across the street, parked, just watching. Parents filtered in, picking up sleepy toddlers and messy-haired preschoolers. I watched the staff say goodbye, smiling like they had nothing to hide. But then, at 6:03, something strange happened. The last parent left. The lights inside dimmed, and then, a tall woman I had never seen before walked out of a back hallway. She was older than the rest. Gray-streaked hair tied in a tight bun, long cardigan, massive ring of keys clipped to her belt. She didn't smile. She didn't look toward the windows. She walked with purpose, straight to a locked door at the back of the facility. She unlocked it, went inside, and shut it behind her. I couldn't breathe. That was her. It had to be, the woman with the keys. The next day, I filed a formal request through email asking for a complete staff list, security footage access for the past week, and a copy of my signed daycare agreement. I didn't even try to sound polite. An hour later, I got a reply. Not from the daycare, but from an unfamiliar legal email. Your request has been received and is under review. Please allow 7 to 10 business days for a response. No name. No direct contact. Just that, I showed it to my husband. He shrugged. They're probably just covering themselves. Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. But I saw the doubt in his eyes. I wasn't imagining this. Later that night, while Liam was in the bath, he told me something else. Something I still wish I hadn't heard. She made me stay in the quiet closet. I turned, heart slamming in my chest. Who? The lady. With the keys. When I didn't nap, she said I was being loud. She said I needed the quiet closet until my voice was ready to be good again. I dropped the towel I was holding. What closet, Liam? In the back. Behind the story rug. It's cold in there. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I wrapped him in the towel and held him tighter than I ever had. The next day, I went back. I didn't call. I didn't knock. I waited until parents had cleared out and I marched through the front door, phone recording in my pocket. Miss Karen was at the desk. Her smile froze the moment she saw me. I need to see the quiet closet, I said, her lips parted, eyes flicking behind me. I'm sorry? The one behind the story rug. The one my son says you lock him in. She blinked. That's ridiculous. We don't have any such thing. I'll wait while you call the woman with the keys. Her eyes changed. Something sharp flashed through them. And just as I thought she was about to speak, a voice echoed from the hallway behind her. Tell her I'm not here. But I was already moving. Toward the voice, toward the back. I didn't stop walking. I moved past the front desk, past Miss Karen's stunned expression, and straight into the hallway behind her. My phone was still recording. Every footstep, every breath, every lie waiting to be unraveled. The hallway was longer than I remembered. Strange, since I had walked through it plenty of times during drop-offs. But everything looks different when you're not supposed to be there. The voice I'd heard, the one that said tell her I'm not here, was gone. Doors lined both sides of the hallway, some cracked open, some shut. I glanced back once. Miss Karen hadn't followed. I passed the classroom where Liam usually spent his mornings. Bright colors, bookshelves, tiny chairs. Normal. Too normal. At the end of the room, beneath a painted mural of forest animals, I saw it, a rug with cartoon storybook characters. The story rug. And just behind it, half hidden by a low shelf of puzzles and blocks, was a narrow, wooden door.no label. No window. Just a knob and a dark, almost greasy fingerprint smudged around it. I reached for it, locked. Of course, behind me, a voice finally called out, ma'am, you can't be back here. I turned. The woman with the keys was standing at the other end of the hall. Not angry. Not startled. Just calm. Cold. I want to see what's behind this door, I said. That's not a space used for the children, she replied. It's for supplies. My son said you put him in there. She didn't blink. Your son is 3. Children that age often misunderstand things. I walked toward her, one slow step at a time. You're not on the staff list. You don't greet the parents. You don't show up at pickup. What exactly is your role here? I maintain the facility, she said flatly. I'm part of operations. Not your concern. Then why does my son know who you are? She paused. Perhaps he's curious. I stopped 2 feet away from her. He said you told him not to cry so loud. That you'd scare the others. That's not curiosity. That's fear. Her face stayed still, but her hand moved slightly, toward the keys at her waist. Like a reflex. Like she'd done it 100 times. Leave, she said. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I'm going to call the police. And if you try to stop me, I'll make sure every parent in this district hears about the quiet closet and the woman who doesn't exist on paper. Her jaw twitched. Just a flicker, then she said, you think you're the first. It was a whisper. Almost too quiet to hear. But I did what? You're not the first parent who came back early. You're not the first who saw something they weren't supposed to. But none of you ever make it stick. Because they never believe you. I took a step back. She smiled then. The first real smile I'd seen on her. It didn't reach her eyes. You'd be amazed what people are willing to overlook when their kid comes home fed, clean, and with a construction paper butterfly. I turned and walked out. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to think. Because I had to plan. I didn't go to the police that night. Not yet. Instead, I started calling every parent I knew who had kids in that daycare. Not just the ones I talked to during pickup, but anyone I could find on social media, local Facebook groups, mutual friends. I didn't care if it seemed paranoid. I told them what I saw. What Liam said. Some brushed me off. Said their kids were fine. One mother even got defensive. It's hard enough to find childcare. Don't make this harder for the rest of us. But then, one father, I'll call him Marcus, sent me a message. My daughter came home with bruises on her arm last month. They said she fell. But she told me she got grabbed too hard for not napping. I called him. He answered on the first ring. She said it was a lady with a lot of keys, he said. Told her not to tell. Said naughty voices stay in the dark room. I thought she meant a dream. He paused, but now I'm not sure it was. We agreed to meet in person. Compare notes. Maybe talk to more parents. Maybe get legal advice. Something, but the next morning, before I could even get dressed, I got a call from the daycare's number. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it back, it wasn't Miss Karen's voice. It was hers. I know what you're doing. You should be very careful, especially with a child involved. It would be a shame if someone got confused and called CPS. The voicemail played in my head over and over. It would be a shame if someone got confused and called CPS. It wasn't a warning. It was a threat. Veiled in politeness. Weaponized with precision. I stared at my phone for a long time after it ended. She didn't say her name. Didn't have to. That voice, low and cold, carved itself into my memory like a scar. I called Marcus back immediately. We need to move fast, I told him. They're trying to scare me into silence. He was already ahead of me. Meet me tonight. 7. I got something. We met in his car, parked in the lot behind a closed grocery store. His daughter, just 4, sat in the back seat watching a tablet with headphones on. Marcus looked exhausted, but determined. I talked to my neighbor, he said. She pulled her kid from Little Acorns last year. Said something was off but never went public. He passed me a flash drive. She managed to pull a clip from the baby monitor in her kid's room. Her son had a stuffed bear with a nanny cam. They took it to daycare a couple times, normal comfort toy. But on this day, the footage caught something. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The screen flickered. A grainy time-stamped video came up. I saw a little boy, barely 2, lying on a nap mat. He wasn't asleep. Just staring at the ceiling, blinking slowly. Then someone walked into frame. It wasn't Miss Karen. It was the woman with the keys at N.O. Greeting. No softness. She stood over him for a moment, then knelt down and whispered something, too low to hear. The boy looked away. Then she grabbed his wrist, not hard enough to injure. But not gentle, she yanked him up and off screen. The video cut there. Marcus looked at me. She said the next day, her son cried the second they pulled into the daycare lot. Said the cold lady told him the dark room was where bad boys go quiet. I sat back in the seat, trying to breathe. This has to go to the authorities, I said. We need to go public. I tried, he said. Police didn't care. No broken bones, no evidence of abuse on the kid. They said if we kept pushing without proof, they'd investigate us instead. Said it sounded like parental anxiety. That phrase. Parental anxiety. Like we were hysterical. Like we were overreacting to our kids' pain. He needed real proof. Hard proof, and there was one place to get it, the security system. I made a plan. The next day, I dropped Liam off at daycare for the first time in a week. It nearly broke me to do it. But I needed them to think I had backed down. That I was scared. I smiled at the receptionist. I complimented the art on the walls. I told Miss Karen I was just relieved things were returning to normal. Then I left, but I didn't go home. I parked 2 blocks away and waited. At noon, I came back on foot, through the side alley, where the dumpsters were. That's where I had seen the woman disappear the week before. There was a door there, unmarked, metal, probably never used by parents. I watched it. 4 hours. Finally, at 2:17 p.m., she stepped out. Same cardigan. Same keys, she didn't see me. She was too focused on dragging a rolling cart full of trash bags. When she went back inside, I slipped through the door before it clicked shut. The hallway was different here. No decorations. Just concrete and utility pipes. I followed the sound of low humming, an air system maybe. Then I saw it. A small office. Unlocked inside, monitors. At least 8 screens, flickering between classrooms, nap rooms, hallways. Every angle covered, and below them, a hard drive. Taped with a label, internal only, do not remove. I pulled out my phone. Started filming. One screen caught my attention. Classroom B, kids lying on mats. One child curled up in the corner. It was Liam. He wasn't crying, but his hands were clenched. He kept glancing toward the door. Like he was waiting for something. Or someone. Then, movement on the screen. She walked in. He didn't react. He didn't even flinch. He just turned his face to the wall. I hit stop on the recording. I took a photo of the hard drive label. I took video of the room layout, the key ring hanging by the door, the names on a clipboard that listed isolation sessions. I had what I needed. As I turned to leave, the door behind me slammed shut, and when I spun around, there she was. No smile this time. She just said, "You really should have listened." She stepped into the room, shut the door behind her, and stood between me and the exit. The woman with the keys. She didn't look angry. She looked resolute. As if she'd accepted this moment long before it happened. "You've seen things you don't understand," she said, almost calmly. "I understand enough," I replied, my phone still in my hand, camera still rolling. "You isolate children. You scare them. You lie to their parents. And you've been doing it for longer than anyone realized." She tilted her head slightly. "You think anyone will care?" That stopped me. Just for a moment. And she saw it. "Parents don't want complicated stories," she continued. "They want convenience. Clean classrooms. Crafts with glue and glitter. They don't want to think about what happens when their child screams and they're not there to hear it." I took a step forward, my voice steady. "You're right. Most of them won't care until it happens to their child. And I promise you, when they find out you locked toddlers in closets for crying too loud, when they see the footage I just recorded, when they hear the audio I've collected, they'll burn this place down themselves." For the first time. She hesitated. I saw her eyes flick toward the monitor. My phone camera still recording. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of exposure. I moved toward the door. She didn't stop me. "Try to delete it," I said, pausing in the doorway. "And I'll make this public before you finish typing your password." And then I left. Shaking. Furious. But more certain than I'd ever been in my life. That night, I called Marcus. We backed up everything, video, audio, notes, interviews with other parents, onto multiple drives. We sent copies to 2 lawyers and a parenting journalist who had covered childcare abuse before. Within 48 hours, an anonymous article dropped online. No names. No photos. Just the facts. Just the footage. It spread like wildfire. Parents in our town recognized the classrooms. The murals. The rugs. The stories poured in quiet whispers at first, then louder. Kids who had come home withdrawn. Children who had trouble napping. One mother wrote that her son used to scream whenever he saw a ring of keys. Little Acorns denied everything. Said the footage was fake. That it was a smear campaign from a disgruntled parent. But we weren't silent anymore, and then, finally, a break. A former employee came forward. She confirmed everything. Said she left after being told to lie to a parent about a timeout session. She had tried to report it, but the state's oversight was too slow. Too messy. This time, though, there was public pressure. The daycare was shut down pending investigation, but that wasn't the end point. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo of Liam, taken through a window. On the back, you think you've won. But there are others like me. I called the police. They opened a case. But without a sender, they couldn't do much. They told me to stay alert. Install cameras. Keep Liam close, and I have, but here's the thing, I'm not scared anymore. I used to believe that if you followed the rules, stayed polite, and trusted the system, your child would be safe, but now I know the truth. Silence is what allows monsters like her to thrive. So I talk. I share. I warn, because maybe your kid is fine today. But if something ever changes, if they start crying at drop-off, if they say they're scared and you don't know why, believe them, even if it makes no sense. Especially then, because the quiet closet isn't just a room, it's a pattern, a system, and sometimes it hides in plain sight.